Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Constructive Criticism. I am your guest host this week, Mason, and I'm joined by the only man in the world that I know with the last name Hinderaker, Michael Hinderaker. Michael, how you doing?
That's such a good intro, man. I'm I'm doing great. I'm doing even better now. I'm glad that I am the only Hinder rocker in your life.
Yeah, the only Hinderaker I need too. So if I ever go to Utah, I need to avoid your family and everything like the plague. But
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I only have like four family members in Utah, so it's probably not going to be that hard.
okay, so you're saying I need to be I need to be ever vigilant then, because they could be out here with me. I thought I just had to be safe in
Yeah,
Utah.
I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine it's like a super common last name. I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, no, I call you Hinderocker A because I always think I'm going to misspell Michael, and B because like no one else is named Hinderocker. So if there's ever another Michael, I can call them Michael. You're Hinderocker.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of Michaels. Like Michael's a real common name, but
Yeah.
less people named Hinder rocker. So
I also think it's a
you know,
powerful last name. It's like Hinderocker. Boom. You don't agree?
okay.
You know,
I don't know.
you know what we can both agree on? The great service at Oasis Games. You can get all the cards you need from Oasis Games, and you use the code CCMTG for 4% back on store credit, and hashtag would that be good on your first purchase for 15% off.
I think it's just would that be good? I think you don't need the
You
hashtag.
don't need. Oh, okay. Well, would that be good? Try whichever one. It'll pop up with the code that works right. But you can do that on your first order to get 15% off, and that's a lot. If you're gonna buy Jace the Mind Sculptor, so like what, $100, $120? Is that right, Michael?
Oh, there's so much. I don't even know what they're at, but
So
they
it's like
are
basically
outrageous.
it's like 500 for a playset, so you get 50. I'm sorry, you get more than $50 back if you use the code there. So boom.
It's enough that, you will only have no money, not need to mortgage a kidney.
Well, it will basically buy you a GP entry or an SEG entry because of how much it costs. It's like a free roll.
Is that a good thing?
It's a
I
thing,
guess.
Michael. I was never told
Okay.
to say good things. I was
Fair.
told to say things about Oasis games. But
Okay.
there's only good things
Well,
to say
we
because
can
how
live with
great
that.
it is. Yeah. And then you can also check out our other sponsor, the Mana Base, for sealed product and singles as well. They're based out of Canada, so when you go there, you might see your card is way more expensive than somewhere else. That's because it's Canadian dollars and their money isn't real. So they just put numbers up and they're like, that seems about right. And it's your job to figure it out. So, all jokes aside, though, you can check out the Mana Base. They like to support upcoming content. Michael found that quite funny. And you can get some cards from them, get sealed product. That's something that Oasis Games doesn't do. So if you're trying to practice for your RPTQ that's coming up, because you're not like Michael Hinderocker and you're a Silver Pro, soon to be Gold, when he spikes GP Memphis here, and you need to practice Limited, you can get the sealed product there.
I
So
mean, I think everyone needs to practice limited. Limited is so hard.
it is hard. Yeah, and if you really want to practice, you can always check out our sister podcast, Limited Time Only, with other Silver Pro from Utah, Danny Cathro. So
Oh man, that's a ringing endorsement.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
Danny Cathro once threw at a PT draft. So can you say that,
that's
Michael?
true. I don't know.
You don't remember if you threw at a PT draft?
I'm not
I feel
sure.
like no offense to you, you've admitted that limited isn't your best. So I feel like you'd remember it.
I'm trying to think of what my best overall PT record for limited is, and it's probably not great. It's certainly not better than 4-2.
I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like you told me this before. It was like 4-2, and you were like, yeah, we did it. So
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I could imagine being excited about that.
yeah, I think that's a completely reasonable thing to be excited about. If I 4-2'd my part of limited, I'd be quite happy because I'm terrible at limited. So
Yeah,
that's
it's really hard.
yeah,
It is really, really hard.
and it turns out when you play against pros all the time, it's also harder. So
Yeah, my experience with limited is really jaded because I never play it for fun. I basically only play it at pro tours.
so
So, so my GP limited results are great. I think I have like two top 16s, a top 32, and a top 64 in like five.
yeah, because you dream crushed that guy from top eight. I remember.
Oh yeah, that was great. But yeah, other than that, like the only time I ever draft really is, practicing for PT and PT. So my my feelings about limited are always that it's the hardest format.
Well, it's probably is a lot of the time, if we're being honest, at the PT. It's probably where the skill advantage happens the most and
Yeah, it
whatnot.
feels like that, certainly.
Yep. But you know what's another way to get a skill advantage, Michael? It's to become
What?
an awesome patron of Constructed Criticism. We have two new patrons we want to shout out. We're going to have a shout out to Jason T and Jaron W. I don't know why you and Spencer have such a hard time saying these patron names. That was super easy.
Yeah, I feel like it's I don't really know what gave me so many problems last week. Maybe it had to do with the name not being Jaron or Jason.
Yeah,
I hope
maybe.
that one of those. I hope that one of their names is pronounced differently, just so you can feel the pain.
Just like he's like, yeah, my name's not actually Jason. It's a silent A. It's Jason. But it
Yep.
happens all the time. Don't worry
Yep.
about it.
Yeah.
No, but thank you so much for being a patron of the show. The show will always be free. But I think with these patrons, we are exactly $1 away from bringing back Card of the Week. But we already brought it back because we count sponsorship money and stuff like that. And I'm, by the way, super hyped to talk about Card of the Week this week. We'll get there soon. But we just want to bring that up. We have another goal pretty soon for. Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if Spencer updated it, but we're adding a goal thing that's pretty exciting soon. So, but either
I
way,
don't even
thank
know
you.
it. The goal is so exciting. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, well, I remember Spencer talked about it, and he's like, I'm not sure if I want to do that or not, and I don't want to be the guy that says it on air, and then Spencer gets mad at me, and he's like, Mason, I tell you to fill in 1 week, and you just throw everything in the wind. But no, but seriously, we appreciate the patron money so much. Thank you for feeling like we gave enough value to you for you to give some value to us. But one of the rewards of being a patron, Michael, is they get to ask a Patreon question. So, Michael, would you like to read this question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, the question says, how could you tell when you have a good or bad matchup against something? How do you know when a matchup is good or bad for you versus your slight bias because you know how to navigate the matchup or you being unfamiliar with how the matchup is? I think this is an interesting question, and a lot of it gets down to sort of why we're interested in playing at the highest level we can, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily do a lot of good to get a bunch of playtesting against players who aren't playing decks well. I think Magic Online competitive leagues are a great outlet for this because you have something at stake. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ton, but there's something at stake.
Hmm.
But the best way to test a matchup is always with a friend or like having sort of playing even like kind of face up to some extent.
Hmm.
Like I think just trying to make sure that both players are playing optimally as opposed to necessarily trying to win playtesting games can give you a much better idea of what your matchups actually look like.
Yeah, I really like that. Something that I've seen people do here, especially when the format's like brand new, like when a rotation happens and it's bigger and everyone's learning all the cards, is they'll play face up for a while on both sides just to make sure nothing's getting missed. Because the goal of playtesting isn't to beat your friends; it's for everyone to improve, right, and get better. So that kind of
Yeah,
stuff can be really helpful there.
you have to be a little bit careful playing face up.
Yeah,
I mean, I think there are like pretty obvious issues with that. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's not the way you test very much, right? But like for the first couple of days, I think it's fine.
well, or if you're really unfamiliar with a matchup, just getting a feeling like having someone who is better at the other archetype than you are.
Hmm.
Like, if you want to learn how your matchup against mono red goes, having them play a couple of games face up where, you know, you kind of ignore the information but still get to see how they're like sequencing things can be really beneficial.
Hmm. Agreed. So, but how can you know, Michael? So, like, you and I are both preparing for GP Memphis, right? And I think it's no secret that like Mono Red is the deck a lot of people are really looking at as to be like the perceived best deck right now. And you look at MDGO and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
how can you tell if your matchup's really good or not against a deck like Mono Red, for example, in Standard? Like,
Well,
I mean, it's hard, but
I think a lot of it is testing,
hmm.
and then a lot of it is like looking at event results and seeing if they maybe back up what you're thinking. And if they don't back up what you're thinking, then either going back to the drawing board or trying to figure out why what you're thinking is different than what seems to be happening.
Okay,
And again, I think that like playing with someone better than you can really be helpful in this kind of sense. I think that playing even if you're just playing on like Magic Online, playing with someone over your shoulder can be really helpful just to give you sort of more looks at the board and give you more thought process about exactly what's happening and why it's happening.
hmm.
I think though, like ultimately, matchup evaluation is a really difficult skill, and it's something you have to try to cultivate.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. I think one thing people really like to do is say like a percentage of a matchup, which is like kind of helpful for I think for like people getting an understanding, but it really doesn't matter. It's not like you're saying hard numbers, you're just getting a feel for it. And after you play for a while, you get a feel like is my deck going to line up well, right? Like is this white green authority the council deck really that good against red, right?
Well, or sort of what has to happen,
Exactly,
right?
right. Yeah. Like, what does the game have to look like? Is that a thing I can consistently do? Does my deck work towards that goal the whole time? All those things are really good. And I wanted to say I really do agree with like, I I think one of the biggest thing that helped me this last year getting better at Magic and always improving and whatnot but has been playing on Modo. I think it has really helped because you play against a wide swath of people who, like you said, I think you said this on a podcast once. It was like you're like gambling, right? Everyone's playing for money, so everyone's going to try. No one's going to, not try or whatever. So that can be really
Well,
helpful. I'm sorry,
and
continue.
more than not trying, like the problem with playing against players who aren't very good is that they're not going to try.
Hmm.
The problem is that trying isn't necessarily enough, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about intent. It's just about ability. And if someone is willing to bet you essentially $12 or whatever that they can go, 3-2, 4-1, or 5-0, they clearly at least believe they're clearly classifying themselves
As someone that can do that.
as something, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I just want to end it on this is that I agree 100% with the like over the shoulder MTGO. One thing that I do a lot with people is they're like play a Moto League and I'll watch. I do this with the constructive criticism worldwide a lot. Me and Caroline play like a lot of leagues and I watch and she plays and we'll talk through plays. I do the same thing with a local guy named Trey and I try and do it when I can with other people as well. But I find that really helpful and it's another way to like maximize testing where like you're making sure and you're able to watch that kind of stuff. So I really like
Yeah,
that. I know that you do that some too, right?
definitely. I play probably about 80% of the Magic I play with two people.
Hmm.
Maybe even more than that percentage. But I think just having someone to talk, it helps with like trying to figure out why you're making the plays you're making.
Yep. Definitely agree. Well, I hope that answered your question. I hope you got something out of it. And let's move on to our always improving moment. Because on the show, we really do believe that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And this week's always improving moment, it's going to start with you, Michael. How have you been improving?
All right. Well, I've just been grinding standard. I have played probably like I've played an unreasonable number of leagues in the last week or two, trying to figure out what I want to play at this Grand Prix.
Hmm.
And although I'm not there yet, I feel like I'm making some progress, and I'm excited. Like it's always a good time to get to play competitive Magic, and Grand Prix are really fun.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure. Yeah, so my always improving moment is kind of the same. Um, I've been playing a good bit of leagues. I'm trying to get a league or two in, a minimum a night, these last couple of weeks, while taking care of other stuff, which isn't as much as Silver Pro Michael Hinderocker probably, but it's I'm doing what I can, and I've been trying this whole season since Standard started to try and find a deck that I'm comfortable with and I think is good, and I've been flipping and flopping around decks, as some people would say, and just trying out weird stuff. Like I played Bant Approach at a PBDQ this last weekend to a second place finish. I've played a couple. I did really well in a couple of leagues with it, but ultimately it's like I just don't think I want to play that deck. So even though I'm getting good results with the deck, being able to separate that from what I think is gonna actually do well at GP is kind of like my always improving moment for the week.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like there are some decks that I've had a lot of success with on Magic Online just because I think the density of red
Hmm.
is lower, but they're not decks I would be comfortable playing against mono red 6+ times with.
Yeah,
And I have a hard time signing up a deck that I'm not okay with that.
yeah, I agree 100%. That's definitely what it feels like with like
But
the
but
Bant
people just
deck.
get burned out, right? Like you're not going to play 40 to 50% of your matches against mono red because people just want to try new things. That
Definitely.
like it makes sense.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to our deck doctor this week. So this is another reward for being a patron, Michael. In case you didn't know, we get to go over your deck on the show and talk about it. And I am gonna say, so Spencer was unable to make the show tonight. There was something that came up, so I wasn't able to get a hold of him and get a hold of the actual deck list. But the one we got said 60, but it only popped up with 58 cards. So I think it would be kind of interesting for us to talk about maybe two cards we would add to it as well. But would you like to
Okay,
read the
I
deck,
like
Michael?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is 23 lands, I believe.
Yep.
4 Dragon Skull Summit, 4 Canyon Slough, 3 Field of Ruin, 1 If Near Deadlands, 6 Mountain, 5 Swamp, 4 Gifted Aetherborn, 2 Ravenous Chupacabra, 4 Rekindling Phoenix, 4 Glorybringer, 2 Magma Spray, 1 Fatal Push, 4 Abrade, 2 Unlicensed Disintegration, 2 Vraska's Contempt, 2 Sweltering Suns, 3 Treasure Map, 3 Chandra Torch of Defiance, and 2 Liliana Death's Majesty. In the sideboard, there are 4 Duress, 1 Arguel's Bloodfast, 3 Moment of Craving, 2 Bantu's Last Reckoning, 2 Sweltering Suns, and 3 Lost Legacy.
All right. So let's start with what do you love about this deck, Michael?
Okay, I like that this deck knows what it is trying to do. We're trying to play a bunch of removal spells and then fly over the top of mono red.
Hmm. I like that too. I just like your game plan. It's point click, bird, Glorybringer, click, kill you. Like
Yes.
that's your game plan.
Right, and you have Aetherborns in the early game.
Hmm.
You, I think that like in a lot of ways this deck just makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. It has one thing I like in a deck is like when you can look at it and you're like, what's this deck's game plan? And it's very clear, just like we talked about. So with that being said, is there any changes that you would like to make to this? Is there anything that seems a little clunky, anything like that? Any cards you'd like to see? Because also we're missing two cards, so we get to add two cards, Michael.
Right. Okay. So there are some things I'm concerned about. I don't think this deck has enough lands. I
That's
would
what I was
not
gonna
be
say.
surprised if the other two cards were lands.
Hmm.
I also don't think this deck has close to enough black sources to actually play Gifted Aetherborn.
All right. Well, what if we added two if near dead lands? So we have
I
some
mean,
spell lands, get some black in there.
sure. But then you would still only be on 16 black sources.
That's true.
That's like probably still a little light. I haven't, I don't have the math memorized off the top of my head, but for second black source by turn 2, I would guess 16 is
Is low.
quite low. And
Yeah.
that's assuming they're both black lands. Mainly, I like Field of Ruin hypothetically, but I think Field of Ruin Gifted Aetherborn with 11 basics is just going to be tough.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Uh,
I think you could probably trim there. I do like the idea of Field of Ruin in the deck, though. I mean, you're a two-color deck, and you can get some as contas, which is
yeah,
nice.
I don't hate it because I would imagine Control is probably your worst matchup,
Hmm.
at least with the main deck setup.
It seems that way from the sideboard
Yeah, but I can't. I think it's going to be tricky to cast Gifted Aetherborn. Um,
consistently on two.
yeah, I'm also not really quite sure what we're doing with Liliana Death's Majesty in this deck. Like, we don't have any way to. There's no way to like loot through. Like, so this card has seen some play recently in these like blue black mid range decks where you have a lot of cards that are kind of filtering through your deck between Chart a Course and
Champion of Wits.
Champion of Wits. It makes a little more sense in those style of decks just because it can actually regularly minus the turn you play it.
Hmm.
I have a hard time believing that's going to happen much here, and I mean Liliana Death's Majesty has not exactly been an all-star in Standard to this point, so I'm a
Yeah.
little unsure about that one.
There's also the synergies with the blue-black deck, where like milling Champion of Wits and the tick up is quite good,
Right,
and here
right,
you have
yeah.
no real synergies, so that part is a little disheartening as well. I agree. Um, I want to talk about something that I'm sure everyone kind of perked their ears at when you read it. Three Lost Legacies. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I am not a fan of Lost Legacy mostly because I don't believe that people should play the card Approach of the Second Sun.
Hmm.
I mean, I would imagine that's what it's a hedge towards.
Yeah, they have so
But
many. I imagine they just named Disallow and weird stuff against Control decks and Scare of God. I don't know. They have so many.
I mean, you can do things like that. I don't know why.
I, I don't know either, but I'm trying because it's weird to me because there are so many Lost Legacies.
Yeah, like the third Lost Legacy is like definitely at least one too many.
Yeah, I would love like an Arguel's Bloodfast, a Dream Stealer, like anything else if you want to be control. Well,
I mean,
don't did you just Dream Stealer? I'll end this
yeah,
podcast.
Dream Stealer is. I've played a Dream Stealer before in my life, I'll admit, but that card has always been pretty
Amazing. You're
bad.
right. I don't know. Maybe I've just had a lot of good luck with the card, but I have just destroyed people's hands with that card a lot of the time. That's
Sure.
fits me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just lucky. I'm not also Silver
It
Pro
it might
extraordinaire.
be better. It might be better in this style of deck just because you actually have so few creatures.
It would also work well with the Lilianas.
Kind
Mm,
of.
you got a brute
I
because
mean,
you mill it and then you buy it back. It's a combo.
kind of. 5-drop, 6-drop. Like
Yeah, that's
then
called
your
building a good
opponent
curve, Michael.
then your
Were
opponent
you there
casts
for the training
approach and you
grounds?
discard their hand every turn, and then they draw another one and kill you. Yeah.
Michael, you know what? If they got, we have our three lost legacies. Well, two lost legacies. Sorry, we have two lost legacies. What do you need? I'm
Yeah,
trying. I'm trying to sculpt a game plan here.
I don't know. I think these kind of decks look pretty good. I might try
Mhm.
like Azur's Gateway or something. I think if you want to play this much spot removal in the main deck, it really helps to have like a good consistent source of filtering.
Yeah. Can I just say that card has overperformed? I think
Yeah,
we both writ that off in like the set review. I'm pretty sure. I think you were higher on it than I was. You were like, this could do something, but
I
that was
don't
a card that's really
remember
impressed.
it. Yeah, it seems at least maybe fine. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It's just a card that I thought would see like no play in the current standard, and like maybe when rotation happened, we see something, and it is actually just seen some fringe play,
it's
which is
seen
more
a
than I
tiny
thought.
bit of play.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like still pretty bad against a braid. Which
and
is
it's
kind
very
of the
slow.
problem with treasure map too.
Yeah,
But
whatever.
here we are.
Yep, there we are. So, Michael, what do you think this deck stands in the format?
It seems okay. I worry that your mono red matchup isn't going to be as good as you'd think. Like, you still seem kind of soft to Hazoret.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, you
Only
only have,
two attempts like scares me a little bit.
do you like the?
Uh,
Do you maybe like turning unlicensed into contempts?
Maybe. I haven't. I don't know that you can actually do that. Just like the curve starts getting kind of out of control. Then if we're going to put like Ravenous Chupacabra and Rekindling Phoenix and Rastal's Attempt and Chandra, like,
And Dream Stealer,
I,
yeah, you're right.
yeah, exactly. I don't know that that's like a real life decision you get to make, but I certainly uh, playing less than 4 Contempt, seeing a Rascal's Contempt deck scares me.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. So it's kind of funny today. Like some friends were like, if you had to like rank the top 8 cards in the standard, what would your rankings be? And I was like, I'm like immediately I was like, I'm not sure, but I know I'm putting Grassless Contempt at like 1 or 2. That's just a card like I'm very happy to play and I'm really excited to play and pulls me towards black decks. So I am scared to only see 2. But he also had like, well, I'm sorry, they had like a million spot removal. So just
Yeah,
yeah,
it goes both ways. It's
mhm,
just that like none of that spot removal has text if there's a Hazoret in play, right?
that's true. And the deck is kind of weak to planeswalkers, but I do like the starting shell of this, and I would be very interested. I don't have the name of whose deck tech this is, but if you're out there, I'd be very interested if you have any updated version, anything like that. If you find success with it, let us know. I want to know. Post it on the Constructed Critics group if you're a patron of $5 or more. All right, Michael, are you excited for this? This next point?
I am.
This is card of the week, Michael. So every week on the show, we like to give away a card that we think is doing well, we're gonna do well, or something like that. And last week, I joked and joked and joked that we'd do Jason Mind Sculptor, and Spencer was like, "Let's not do that. Instead, let's do Bloodbraid Elf." So card of the week this week is Bloodbraid Elf. I'm not sure how many we're giving out. I imagine it's 4, might be 1. If you win card of the week, you'll find out. You got some Bloodbraid Elves, Michael. Have you been looking at Modern and all? I know I have. You're like, I don't know because sometimes if the
It
cards are more
could be
expensive.
4. It might be 1. What
I,
a good answer.
I'm just gonna say 4 on the
Yeah,
podcast now. There, now since we're
I
speaking about
haven't.
4.
Oh, that's so expensive. They're like
It
$10 a piece.
oh 2. How about that? No, but no,
I
seriously.
couldn't tell you. That's not my decision to make.
Yeah, I know I'm just joking.
But Bloodbraid Elf seems pretty sweet.
Hmm?
I really like the red green Eldrazi deck with it that I've seen Tim post a couple of times. I would imagine it like is probably good in Jund. I saw someone play a Death Shadow list
Yeah, I played a
with
league
them.
with that.
Was it good?
It was kind of good. Uh, Caroline, if you're out there, Caroline is very high on the Traverse Shadow list. She really enjoys. Maybe she's not high. Maybe she just enjoys playing them. But I find that we're playing those a lot when we do leagues, and I am not as big on the old Traverse Shadow as everyone else. But I will say we cascaded into Kolaghan's command, and that was the truth.
Ugh, that
Yeah,
sounds
it was
gross.
like first time. It was like boom, Kolaghan's command, kill your thing, buy back a Death Shadow, and I was like, all right, well if we're gonna do this every time, I'm game. So
Sold. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious because you didn't get to give your hot take on Jason and everything. I know you don't really care that much about hot takes and
Yeah,
whatnot,
that's
but
kind of true.
yeah, I mean it is the truth. But I'm gonna ask you the question anyways. Do you think we're going to be seeing Jace reband in a little bit, or do you think Bloodbraid Elf and the rest of the format's going to
I
check
don't
him?
know.
You know? It's a good answer.
I think the biggest problem with Jace in general is that blue just kind of sucks.
Yeah?
Like, I'm down to play Jace. I don't want to play any other blue cards in this format.
Okay. Well,
Pretty much ever.
so what you're telling me is we're going to play Teamer Moon, and we're going to play Jason Bloodbraid Elf together.
I mean, I just don't want to play Blood Moon either. I don't think Blood Moon's very good.
Why can't my fun decks be fun, Michael? Why do you?
I mean,
I'm
I don't want to get into why you shouldn't play Blood Moon decks,
yeah,
but
no, that's fine.
I don't think like the quality of cantrips is pretty bad. Um, the quality of spot removal is okay. The quality of sweepers is quite poor.
Seer Vision's is
I
actually
mean,
isn't it
like,
kind of better now too because you get to scry away half your brainstorm.
I mean, you can like, I don't know.
I don't know. I was just
My feeling in general is that the blue shells are not so powerful that Jace just puts them over the top, and he doesn't necessarily solve the problems that the decks really have. Like, it's obviously an insanely powerful card, and it will make the decks better, but I don't know that you go from, like, Grixis being kind of a fringe deck and blue-white being kind of a fringe deck to, you know, these being, like, the two best decks in the... Like, I think it's... Obviously, Jace is great. I was talking to Matt the other day, and he was like... I forget exactly what he said, but the gist of it was basically, so Jace doesn't have any bad matchups. He just has bad positions. But like any time that basically, if you're
that's
at
true.
parity, I would draw Jace the Mind Sculptor in any deck on any board,
Yeah.
as long as you're at parity. Any deck, any matchup, Jace is great. But anytime you're behind, it just doesn't do anything.
All
And
right.
like in Legacy, you have like Force of Will to pitch it when it's clear that it's not going to do anything. You can brainstorm it away when it's clear it's not going to do anything. Like you have so much more control over drawing Jace in good situations. Whereas in Modern, like you just don't have the same luxury, right? If your opponent like plays a Goblin Guide and you've kept a hand that is looking, you know, like to try to play a Jace, you just mulligan to 6.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. All right. Well, I want to wrap it up real quick with Bloodbraid Elf decks. Michael, I'm going to get your hot take, fascinating or not. Let me know. Red Green Ponza of Bloodbraid Elf. Where are we at?
No.
No. All right. Well,
No, you're going to keep casting Arbor Elves off your Bloodbraid Elf and just be sad.
wrong. I'm going to play Arbor Elf, because now there's two out of my deck. And I'm going to play Bloodbraid Elf, and I'm going to go Stone Rain. I'm going to go Stone Rain again with turn. And they're going to have no lands, and I'm going to attack them for 3.
Then they'll draw land and
Oh no, everything's
you'll
falling
just have to
apart.
play a Blood Moon and everything will fall to pieces.
I want that deck to be good because I don't like it. I mean, I like it when my opponents don't have lands, but I don't think the deck is good. I was hoping you would confirm my bad choices, but instead you
Yeah,
are a good friend and an honest person.
I don't know. I just think like signing up, deciding that you're going to register Stone Rain is just like not something I can get on board with.
That's fair.
You know,
Yeah.
like if my game plan ends up being trying to like Ghost Quarter someone or you know I sideboard in a Molten Rain and burn or something, fine. But I'm not like registering a bunch of Stone Rains.
So you're
It's
telling me
not.
4 Stone Rain, 4 Molten Rain, 4 Fulminator Mage, 4 Bloodbraid
Right.
Elf is not something I can get you.
It's not. It's not going down like that. No.
All right.
You can play that deck. I'm not losing with that pile.
All right. Well, I'm gonna play that deck. I'm gonna get paired against you. I'm gonna beat you and your stupid Jace the Mind Sculptor decks. That's
I
not
don't.
true. I can't lie to the people like
Let's
that.
say,
I'm not
why
gonna
was
beat
I?
anyone.
Why am I going to play Jace the Mind Sculptor?
Because you're like, I want to play this card. It's super cool, and you're like, draw 3, put
Sure.
back.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Michael.
If you're a parody, Jace wins every game.
We're ahead. To be fair, any card
Sure.
wins
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I mean, every Planeswalker wins when you're already ahead. That's the secret.
Even Tybalt, Michael.
I don't even know what Tybalt does, so probably not.
All right, that's fair. All right. Well, that's card of the week. So my understanding is that card of the week will be decided on the winner next week live because it will be the last
The last
the last week of the
last
month.
week of the month. Yeah.
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 So next week you're gonna find out if you're gonna win Bloodbraid Elf, Galta, and the last one's on my phone. I want to say it's Mox Opal, but that's definitely wrong. I don't know.
I feel like it's not Mox Opal.
I feel like it was a card that was kind of expensive though, but I don't know where it
Yeah,
is.
I feel like Mox Opal is pushing it.
Yeah, I agree, but for some reason I thought it was that card. Maybe it's I don't know. Who knows? It's a cool card. If you've been
You
listening
can
every
win
week-
some Magic cards.
Exactly, and I mean Galt is the best. That's all that really matters. It's a 12/12
It's the best
for
in
GG.
limited.
Yeah, that's true. Tetsamok, but that one is really good too.
It's so annoying when your opponent's like 5-drop, and then you're like, why does your 5-drop have 12 power? It's so unfair.
Yeah, that is very true. And you ramped to it by playing Magic. That was fun.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah, exactly.
So this week we're not doing any power rankings. So we were gonna do Modern, and then we were like, oh yeah, that format's not a thing. And we did standard last week, and not really anything happened over the weekend. So we're just going to do deck of the week, and we're going to be doing green black snake. So Michael, do you want to read this deck off to the people?
Sure. So it's 4 Walking Ballista, 4 Glintleaf Siphoner, 4 Merfolk Branchwalker, 4 Whiny Constrictor, 3 Jade Light Ranger, 2 Rishkar Pima Renegade, 3 Ravenous Chupacabra, 3 Verdurous Gearhulk, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Blossoming Defense, 2 Aethersphere Harvester, 2 Vraska's Contempt, 4 Aetherub, 4 Blooming Marsh, 4 Forest, 4 Foul Orchard, or 3 Foul Orchard, 2 Ash Oasis, 2 Ishvanir Deadlands, 5 Swamp, and the sideboard is 4 Duress, 1 Fatal Push, 2 Golden Demise, 1 Vraska's Contempt, 1 Naturalize, 2 Deathguard Scavenger, 2 Vraska, 2 Lifecrafter's Peace Cherry.
So Michael, what do you think about this deck? And like, how would you summarize this deck and its game plan?
I do not like this deck, and I would summarize its game plan as play Whining Constrictor and pray it doesn't die.
So you are not you clearly don't like this deck. So originally Spencer was going to take the lead on this deck of the week.
Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah.
I assume Spencer likes this deck more than I do, but that's also not saying
Yeah.
a whole lot. You probably like this deck more than I do, too.
Well, I bought the cards and I was like, oh, I'm gonna play this deck and give it a try because I talked about how I'm trying all these new decks, and I never did because it was never that exciting to me. So I'm gonna try and do a thing in Magic that's harder because it's very easy to not like a deck. I'm gonna try and find things that I like about this deck. I'm gonna try and talk about them and why we might want to play it. Because
Okay,
it's
so the
very
things
easy to get a bag on a deck. Anyone can do
the
that.
things I like about it is, especially when you're on the play, if you curve or like mostly curve but also have a blossoming defense,
Hmm.
it's very much more like an aggro combo deck than just like a mid-range deck.
Yeah.
Right. If you're like Whining Constrictor into like Rishkar into Jade Light Ranger Blossoming Defense, your opponent is just dead.
Yep.
Like you just made like 15 power on turn 4 and they're about to get wrecked.
I agree 100% with that. I also think this deck has a really one of the things that these green black snake decks have always done is they always have very powerful turn twos. So Glintsleeve Siphoner is a powerful turn two. Snake leads into powerful turn threes, and Branchwalker is a passable magic card.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Branchwalker. I have played with it a little bit in the red-green decks, and in
Hmm.
those decks, I like it. I just like the Explore cards all a little bit better because there are some things that provide value out of your graveyard.
Yeah.
So one of the things I don't like about Explore in this style of mid-range deck is that there's no way to bin anything for value. You also aren't a deck that requires a tremendous amount of lands,
Hmm.
so you're sort of scrying, but
Not
it's
really.
much more scrying than actually like getting extra cards.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree on that point. I really like that the green red deck can explore for value in a way, right? And like bill a
Right.
Chimera and then be like later have a curve play. That's very
On the
nice.
flip side, I would imagine this deck is quite good against mono red. You have like all 9 spells, so 3 Fatal Push, 2 Blossoming Defense, 2 Aethersphere Harvester, and 2 Vraska's Contempt are outstanding against mono red. You're good at going over the top of them, and you're pretty good at blocking
Hmm.
as far as that all goes. And then in boarding, you get another Vraska's Contempt, another Fatal Push, more Deathgorge Scavengers. So like, I can imagine a metagame where I would want to play this deck, but the more open the metagame is, the less I'm into green black.
So in your mind, green black is kind of like a weekend deck, right? Like you would pick a weekend where you feel like it might be well positioned and try and spike an event with it.
Yes, I think that like if you expect to play against mostly mono red, I think this deck is really good against that deck. I think this deck is going to struggle with anything playing Fumigate. I think we've pretty well established that that's
Yeah.
rough. Uh, I wouldn't. I would guess this deck is okay, but not like great against tokens.
So this is very interesting. So you know I've played more tokens than I probably should have. Back in the day,
Right.
it was zombies was our best matchup, and green black was our second one. So my friend Trey still plays a lot of tokens, and he finally just got off the deck this last weekend. But the matchup actually got a lot worse because what a lot of people are doing that this deck isn't doing, Michael, is they're playing some Vraska's main deck, and they have another naturalize in the
Right.
sideboard, and it actually becomes much harder. Because before they would only have those cards for game 2 and 3, as you can just get through them. But now main deck they actually have a way to beat you. And
Well, and the green black deck snowballs so hard, and
yes.
the tokens deck is so clunky at times that just like a combination of Walking Ballista and Verdurous Gearhulk can often like,
Close out a
oh,
game.
you have 3 or 4 blockers, but they all die and you take 15.
Yes, that happens a lot. So
Um,
they got a lot of upgrades. So the matchup actually became much harder.
yeah, I just know having actually played both green, black, and tokens a little bit. I would imagine that matchup is like a lot more reasonable for green black than it would be on the surface, especially because I think most of the tokens decks have basically cut Fumigate at this point.
Yeah, they are
Because
all.
that's because it's so bad against mono red. It is
Yeah,
so bad. It doesn't do anything to Phoenix. It doesn't do anything to Hazred.
yeah.
It
It
doesn't do
was.
anything to Chandra. So it just doesn't solve any of your problems. It actually does nothing in that matchup.
Yeah, I was sideboarding them out as band approach. It was funny. I was like, well, I've got to get rid of
Which
these
doesn't make
sweepers.
any sense, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
you're like, oh, these sweepers are so bad against the go wide creature deck.
yeah. Instead, I'll play this Regal Caracol and hope to trade a little, and that's not even good. So, yep, that's definitely something I agree with on that whole tokens and fumigate front. Another thing I really like is this card. This deck gets to play. What is it called? I'm forgetting its name. Is that Artifact Lifecraft Bestiary? That's that's
Yes.
that's a card I really like, and it's good in the matchups where it's good. But that's been my
Yeah.
experience. I'm curious what you think about it though.
So I think it's powerful, but I also think that any control deck with access to like a braid or any of the bigger mid-range decks that might take a more controlling role with access to braids, like Grixis Energy,
Hmm.
any kind of Grixis control deck, they're going to keep in all the abrades they have. And my
They have
experience
to,
with
yeah.
Lifecrafters Bestiary has always been that it is like remarkably fragile for a non-creature way to draw cards.
Hmm.
In general, I think one of the biggest problems with this deck is that your game ones against spot removal decks just aren't very good.
Agreed.
You're basically trying to blossoming defense them out of the game, but you can't draw you have to like draw the right mix of creatures and blossoming defenses. And because you're more of a synergy deck, the right creatures have to actually live, so it's not just having a blossoming defense eventually. It's blossoming defensing on in very specific spots, and I've just never been able to get that to work for me consistently.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I've had boss. I feel like I love blossoming defense, but then whenever I'm like watching a league, watching someone plays, it seems like it never plays out the way I want it to.
It's incredibly powerful, but a lot of the time your opponent can sort of use it against you. Where if your draw isn't phenomenal, it ends up kind of stone raining you, and they can actually win by using your own blossoming defense to slow you down. I I I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but like I've definitely had that feeling before where you're like kind of priced into holding it up, but you have to play then a tap land or something, and now you like can't really continue to curve. Just things like that.
Mhm.
It just ends up being surprisingly awkward, and it's so hard not to telegraph it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. So, yeah, even after talking about this deck and trying to stay positive on it, I'm not super high on it. But that being said, I think there are definitely worse decks in Standard to be playing.
It's not my favorite, but I like playing Siphoner. I get why people have gone away from him, just because there are so many like fanatical firebrands and abrades, and like he just dies a ton. But that card is incredibly powerful if it stays in play. And I think that getting to play Aether Hub is probably quite good as well for this deck. It lets you realistically actually play like Jade Light Ranger into Ravenous Chupacabra way more often.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So that was our deck of the week. Once again, we are not going to be doing power rankings this week, just because Standard didn't really change that much. Michael doesn't want to give
Yeah,
away
they're
his
they're,
sweet
they're just
tech.
well. That's not true. I don't.
I,
I wish I had sweet tech to not give away.
like
But
that sweet Godfarer's gift deck. Huh?
which one?
Oh, the tarot. Danny showed me one that had like Sahili Rai and Bomat Courier, and
Oh yeah, I like. Yeah, that deck was cool. I
yeah,
like turn forward some people with that. Yeah.
yeah, that deck was sweet. Uh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it wasn't good, but like it was cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. I should have had that up on the screen so we could talk about it, but whatever. That's a different day, different story. Feel free to message Michael at MagicMikeMTG on Twitter, and I'm sure he
Don't
will talk
no
about that.
only don't message me about this deck because it's bad. Like
Oh, okay.
build it in your head, put Combat Celebrant in your deck, and there you go.
Yeah. It's a spicy one. That's all we can say. But we have got a pretty interesting training grounds that I'm excited to talk about. So let's just hop right into that. And so for the majority of the show here, and Michael, this training ground is about making time for yourself. So let's get down to it, Michael. Magic, they don't call it the grind because it's super easy and you don't have to spend any time on it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely play like a lot, kind of an unreasonable amount of Magic.
Yeah, how much Magic do you think you play in a week, Michael? Like when preparing
I
for an event?
a lot. Like, I mean, today I worked for about 8.5, 9 hours, and then I already played most of a league, had some dinner, and recording this podcast, and will likely play 2 or 3 more leagues before going to bed.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing. I worked, I came home, had some dinner. I actually recorded I did another podcast for Vanguard stuff back in the day because they're having a big 100th episode. I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to hopefully do 2 leagues before the night's done. So, yeah, so what do you think you probably play like 25, 30 hours of Magic in a week leading up to a big event?
At least.
Yep. So
I mean,
that's
I'd
good.
say 25, 30 hours just in an average week, probably
Hmm.
more when it's really pushing up on something.
Yeah, so I mean, a big part of that is playing every day and making time for that. Is that something that you find is kind of hard for you to do at times, or like, because how you do it, especially in a relationship, I think is an interesting thing for some people out there.
Yeah, so I try to back off when I'm really not feeling it. Like, the one thing I found is that trying to push through disinterest just generally makes you unhappy. Um, if you're really not feeling it, I think it's totally fine to back off for a couple of days and just think about things instead. Like sometimes I'm more interested in trying to like approach approach a new deck or like think about what cards are really powerful in the decks that I'm struggling to beat, things like that, rather than just continuing to grind and grind and grind and grind when I don't feel like playing.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think that like you have to like you said, you have to do things that work for you and work in your relationship and work, with your work schedule and with your other hobbies, whatever those may be.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that kind of happens when you play a lot of Magic is that your other hobbies become much more relaxing in nature. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, if Magic is your most serious hobby, I definitely agree with that. Like, it's my most serious hobby, so most of the other things I do, I really do just for fun.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, there are things I never do if I don't feel like it. There are things I don't put nearly as much effort into. There are things I just frankly don't care nearly as much about.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I've definitely found that. Uh, Sorry, just had a text from my boss there to read it for a second. But regardless, when it comes to like work, it's something I have to pay a lot of attention to and do well when I'm doing it. And I need to focus and take care of that. And then when I get to Magic, I have to do the same thing. So when I'm just relaxing, and just watching TV, I'm really just only watching things I want to enjoy. And that, for me, honestly, like if we're just talking about like the grind in general, my life is basically go to work, play Magic, and then relax watching a movie or a TV show. Basically, and work out, and that's basically all I do. So,
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
mean that's a big part of my life as well. One of the things that I try to do is, especially, I'm out of town a fair amount to play Magic, so
Hmm.
when I am at home, I try to make sure I get some exercise, make sure I get enough sleep, make sure that I get enough time with my girlfriend. That
Yeah, I don't know how
like
I don't know
for
how you do it with. I'm sorry, I forgot your girlfriend's name.
high end.
Hyen. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how you do it with Hyen. I'm single and like there's almost no time.
Yeah, well, we make it work, and part of that is understanding that like we both have fairly intense things that we put a lot of time into, and like that's part of our relationship. But I think sort of understanding like that realistically you can play again tomorrow. Like sometimes you just need to take some time off and
Hmm.
work out or relax for the sake of your mental health or your happiness or the health of your relationship or really just anything else. And I think that a lot of your goals in Magic kind of have to come down to how much time you can really devote to it. Like, it's just really hard to play at a high level without devoting a large amount of time to Magic.
Yeah, Magic really does demand you all the time. I think it was. I'm curious to get your take on this. I think it was BBD. Someone messaged him and was like, "How did you like? How do you do it? You know, like you play all the time. You got became the world champion. You grinded all this stuff. Like, how did you do it?" And it's like, "All I do is play Magic." Right? Because I think that
Yeah.
essentially the quote of it was like they were asking, "How do you make time to do other things in your life?" And he was just like, "All I do is play Magic," and that doesn't have to be, I think, who you are, because I don't think many people strive to be the world champion. I don't know if that's something Michael. I don't know enough about your goals and stuff in Magic to know that, but that's like a really big commitment.
Yeah, and I think just like having a realistic understanding of what you can get out of your time, and also understanding that using your time efficiently is a big part of that, right? Like,
Hmm.
you don't necessarily have to play all day every day to get substantially better.
Yeah,
Just like everything, right? If you want to, if you want to win the Masters, I mean, first of all, you probably had to, you'd become a golf prodigy at a younger age, but realistically, that has to be basically all you do.
yep. No, I agree
But
100%.
if you want to merely be a good golfer, you probably don't need to only play golf.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can say the same thing for Magic. I think you can. Excuse me. Sorry, I got something caught in my throat there. I think you can like get to the RPTQ level. You do some decent finishes at GPs and stuff like that, and do other things in your life as well. And I think
Definitely.
I also think a big thing is that some people don't set realistic goals for themselves, and they all they want is really to have success and win, if that makes sense. And so they put a lot of stress on themselves, and then because of that, they don't do things efficiently. They stress themselves out too much. They don't take the time off like you're talking about, and because of that, they burn out and they just don't succeed. Is that something that you've seen where you're from and whatnot?
Yeah, I see a little bit of that. I mean, honestly, I don't play locally very much anymore.
Hmm.
But I think just having a realistic understanding and grasp of where you're at in Magic makes sense. But also, in addition to that, like, not just having a grasp on where you're at, but having a having ideas on how to get better. Because the truth is that, like, no matter how much you prepare for an event in the month before it, you can't really make yourself a dramatically better Magic player in a month,
Agreed.
right? So, like, a lot of what you're trying to do is sort of scratch and claw and get ever so slightly better at just actually playing Magic. And over time, don't necessarily need to devote quite as much time to maintaining the level. Like most things, right? Once you've sort of achieved something, it's easier to do it again, right? If you
Exactly.
already were very good, it's easier to get back to that level. And some of that is knowing how hard you have to work, but some of it is also knowing that, like, it's just easier to achieve a level you've already achieved. It's always hard to make progress.
Yeah, I really like that, and that's why like whenever I'm on the show, I feel like I always bring this up, and I wish I had more to offer, but I really do believe it. It's not about winning and stuff like that. It's about improving at Magic and playing the best you can, because of what Michael's saying, right? Like you can't become, probably good enough to win a GP in 1 month, but if you keep practicing, you keep playing, right, and you get better and better, your chances go up, and you just consistently do better, and that is a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is separating good play
Hmm.
from results.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love that so much. You want to
Like,
delve into that a bit more?
yeah, I think just like ultimately, good play and results they're correlated, but they're not necessarily caused, right? Like, it's not your good plays don't always lead to winning, but you're always going to win more if you're playing well.
Yep, 100%.
And I think that sort of understanding the difference really helps in terms of it will help you not only play better, but it helps give you control over how you feel about your play.
That's what I was about to say. Happiness. So I'm glad you got
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like, I mean, obviously you're happier when you're winning. I think that's natural and reasonable, and I certainly wouldn't expect anyone to, be smiling the whole time you're getting crushed, like that's fine. I don't think that's a reasonable thing to expect. But by making play a priority versus just results, you just have a lot more control, right? Like if I make all the right decisions and I'm happy with my prep and I'm happy with my deck choice and I mulligan to 4 a bunch of times, that's
Yeah,
that might be that can just be freak variance. But if I'm playing well, I expect to mostly do well.
exactly. Yeah, it's like I always say this. Whenever someone complains about getting mana screwed or they mulligan a bunch, and they tell me it's like, well, you knew the game you were signing up to play. You know that this happens sometimes, and more often than not, that doesn't really happen. So I'm sorry that today sucked, but going forward, probably won't be that way. So let's just move on and focus on what we can focus on, right?
Right, exactly. So, if you find yourself mulliganing a bunch, you sort of have to decide, okay, is it possible that I'm like mulliganing 7s too aggressively? Is it possible that I need to play more or less lands or a different color composition? Like, right? I mean, there's more that goes into it than just recognizing variance and trying to let it go. You have to figure out, is this actually just variance or am I contributing to this in some way? But
Yep. Sorry.
I think that just in terms of attitude, sort of brushing variance off a little bit goes a long ways.
I agree 100%. But let's talk about our rules for traveling. So, Michael, last week on this show, Spencer talked about how he will just drive to any GP that I think was like 10 hours away. If it's 10 hours, Spencer's going. He doesn't care if it's limited, popper, commander 1v1, he's going. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, for example, you're flying into Memphis. I mean, you get to hang out with me, so I understand that's why you're really going. There's like a GP or
Yeah,
whatever.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. But, what are your like rules of travel when it comes to Magic?
Well, it depends on where you live, but here in Salt Lake, basically any Grand Prix that costs like $200 or less
Hmm.
for a plane ticket, I just buy.
Yep. I think
Um,
that's very reasonable.
I'm not in a financial position to always buy them way in advance, so sometimes it's a little bit tricky, but I will basically go to every Grand Prix that is within 2 hours.
You $200 for 2 hours.
Or 200, well, 200.
Oh, you're
I
definitely.
wish, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
within
no, you're good.
within that budget. And that for me is about the point where over a sample of about the last like year and a half, I have been able to basically break even on anything under that,
Hmm.
and anything over that, it starts getting a little dicey.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's super reasonable. It's like, because you do have to, we're talking about making time for yourself and doing the grind stuff, but part of that, the whole making time for yourself, is making sure you're not spending too much money and you're being reasonable with your expectations and having clear guidelines. I really like that you're like, well, I'm trying to hit silver/gold, and that means if something costs $200 or less to get there, I'm going to go play that format and do the best I can and work towards doing that. So,
Yeah,
I
well, and
think,
I think the secret is that like a lot of getting, especially silver, is just volume.
hmm
Like obviously you need to be doing reasonably well at these events or whatever, but it's very, very difficult to get silver from like 0 Pro Tour invites
oh,
without
yeah.
just playing a ton of events.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's crazy.
I mean, the only way you're gonna like you can't top 8 an event you don't play, right? I think I
Hmm.
said that last week, but like
True.
you can't win, you can't achieve your goals by not playing. So I think that like you know in terms of wanting your sanity, in terms of wanting your relationships to be successful, in terms of wanting you to be good at your job, in terms of wanting to be in good physical health, I totally understand not wanting to devote all your time and money or whatever, all your effort to Magic. But at the same time, when you want to succeed at the highest level, then you're sort of priced into trying really hard, right?
I was about to say you're priced into it. Yeah, if you really want to do well and you really want to play like multiple pro tours, you want to hit silver and stuff like that. It's like Michael said, if you're not already going to pro tours, it's very hard to get silver. I mean, if you play every pro tour in the year, right? If you let's say you just
Right,
had them, that's 12 pro points. So you only need
right.
8, and you probably got some to get there. So once you get on it, that's why they talk about getting on the train. Is so important. So once you're gold and you hit all the pro tours, it becomes a lot
Yes.
easier.
Once you're gold, it's a lot easier to get gold again.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. It makes sense when you really think about it, right?
Sure. I mean, gold also gets you an extra buy at every Grand Prix, so like that ties into it.
Pay to win pros. I see. Nah,
Yes,
I'm just
that's the
joking.
only reason they're good. It's
Yeah.
the only reason. Other than that, they'd be, missing day two like everyone else.
Yep, exactly. And PV's never done it. Every GP he goes to, he crushes them all. Same for Luis. But let's talk about we talked about it a little bit there a second ago, but let's talk about physical health and magic. That's something that you like try and prioritize, like making sure that you get exercise in and whatnot.
I
Because I know there's
mean,
a lot of studies about using exercise. You feel better and think better.
so I definitely try to get some exercise, but I also don't really know that this is the right place to lecture people about exercise.
Hmm.
I understand that basically, we're all trying to live as healthy as we can, but it's challenging to eat well, and it's challenging to find time for exercise. And
Especially at magic tournaments, it's hard to eat well.
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I
we're
think
getting ribs on
magic
Saturday.
tournaments
Let's
magic
go.
tournaments likely mostly consist of being a professional sitter.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time sitting on planes and a lot of time sitting in convention halls and a lot of time sitting on my computer playing Magic Online. So you know,
Sounds like you need a standing desk, Michael.
yeah, I know. Maybe I do. Maybe I need a treadmill desk.
Have you thought about getting a standing desk, like real talk?
No,
Not at
no.
all.
But I'm also like, I'd have to buy one, which is like a pretty big deterrent.
What if we got you a standing desk? Would you use it?
I don't know. I've
All right.
never I've never used a standing desk before. It's hard to say for sure.
It's pretty great.
Do you have one?
A coworker has one, and I've used it. I stood there and I had to like mess around their stuff for a while. I liked it. It was fine.
Yeah, it seems like it might be nice at work. I haven't used one in that context. Um,
I guess the context
but
of Magic Online would be different.
yeah, well, I don't know how long. Maybe it's better. I couldn't really tell you.
All right.
I'll
Well,
just stand up sometimes when I'm playing Magic Online, and I'll let you know how it goes.
love it. I love it. So let's talk about mental health though when it comes to Magic. And I think what Spencer was talking about with this was really like staying off tilt and making sure you're playing with your time efficiently, like we talked about before. Is that something that you find yourself doing a lot? Like if you get frustrated or whatnot because of some bad variants, you like step away for a while, or do you? How do you like handle all of this?
I don't know. I'm pretty good at not tilting.
Hmm.
Like, it's just not really something I struggle with basically ever at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a lot of advice for like getting better at not tilting besides stop it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the same. When I was younger, I had issues with it, I think, and then as I got older, it hasn't become that big of a problem. But my friend Trey always has this story that he likes to tell, and I think it will be helpful for some people, so I'm going to tell it.
Okay.
So his mom used to be a nurse, and she would come back, and she'd be pretty like worn out and tired, and Trey would like talk to her and ask about her day and stuff, and she would tell stories about kids dying and these like injuries. From my understanding, she worked in like the trauma unit, so I mean, skewed results, but whatever.
Yeah, but it was traumatic.
It was traumatic, exactly.
That's why it was called the trauma unit.
Exactly, perfect. I'm glad we got there together. We did it. But regardless, they come back every day, and then sometimes she would have hard days and she would lose it, but she would try and focus on the things that matter to her in her life and try and stay on the positive stuff, especially when she was home. And then he sees people who play Magic and they're freaking out about drawing the third stomping grounds in a row, right? And it's just like, what are you doing with your life, right? Like there are more important things out there to be concerned about and worried about. And if the worst thing that happened to you today, is you drew the third stomping grounds in a row when all you needed was a spell to trigger Chandra's emblem to kill them, I think you have a pretty great life. You should really keep that kind of stuff in perspective. So I say all that to say, just keep it in perspective, right? It's a game. It's something we all really try on. We spend a lot of time. Michael just talked about how he's spending 30 plus hours a week playing Magic. It's easy for these things to get emotional, but you see that like Michael does a good job of keeping a calm head, and he has success from that, right? So if you find
Well,
yourself struggling with tilt, I would say kind of take perspective.
yeah, I think too. It's like you can acknowledge being unlucky without being
Tilted.
unreasonably upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you like. I'm not asking you to say, I'm not asking you to say like, oh yeah, I drew my third stomping ground in a row, and I, couldn't have possibly lost if I drew a spell. But like, what are you gonna do about it? Like that's
Yeah.
that's Magic. If you want to play something else, go play chess.
Exactly, yeah. It goes back to that whole thing where it's like you signed up knowing that you could never draw a spell the entire tournament. It's very, very unlikely, but you could, mulligan to like three every game, never see any spells.
Yeah, you could literally never draw a spell, or like
Yeah,
obviously things are incredibly unlikely, but
yeah,
I, I just think that like you're playing a game with variance, and variance is what makes Magic fun
yes.
in my experience, right? Like
Hmm.
it makes it interesting, and it makes your evaluation of the board change turn to turn. Like if like a lot of what makes the game interesting is variance. So sometimes it's going to bite you, sometimes it's going to bite your opponent, but most of the time, even in a given match, it mostly evens out.
Yep, I agree 100%. I mean, Hearthstone uses variants in the cards all the time because they try and create this exciting moments. It's very similar in Magic and the mana system and everything like that. But that's a conversation for a different training grounds, Michael. So, Michael, um, I so my understanding is you work at Oasis Games, correct? Proud sponsor of Constructive Criticism.
That is true.
So, how does you have a very interesting work environment, right? Because for you, your boss, uh, I believe, was a Silver Pro or
Is
played.
silver.
He is
Yeah,
he is
is
Silver.
silver.
Okay, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought, but I wasn't sure. So like he kind of gets it. So is it hard for you to relate to the Magic life balance there? Like you're in a very weird position. Like I'm trying, you know what I mean? Like your
Yeah. Yeah.
experience is not the average experience.
Right. No, I mean, that's I get that for sure. So like it just depends on how present you have to be in your work, right? Like I think compartmentalization is something we all do with varying levels of effectiveness, but something we all try to do here and there. So, if you have to compartmentalize for the sake of your physical, mental health, your work balance, your relationships, whatever, that's something you got to get good at. Just it's just another skill.
So time off for stuff and travel, I think is what I think was what Spencer was getting at. Michael, is that do you find that Alex is a reasonable, understanding boss when it comes to that kind of stuff? Like, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like I think obviously it's not hard for me to get time off, but I think that's true of a lot of
mhm,
if you're working a job like I'm working, then it's probably pretty easy for you to get time off. Like, the more necessary it is for you to be at work, the harder it is to get time off. That's just going to be mostly factual.
yeah, it is not easy for me to get time off work, so I
Yeah,
definitely understand that. Yeah, and as for myself, it means I guess I'll try and answer this question
it
first.
just means you have to plan, right?
Yeah, you have
Like,
to plan and
it just takes
balance.
planning.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
just takes planning. I mean, most everyone can get time off as long as they have enough notice and you know can work around it,
Yep.
just like you would with any other kind of vacation. If you want to take a trip to play Magic, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. 100%. So I think we've already talked about the next one Spencer want to talk about in relationships. Is there anything you'd really want to say about that, especially for someone who might be in a relationship? I can't really help here, but
No, I mean, just be reasonable.
yeah, I think that's
Like,
like an underlining message in this whole thing. It's like, you have to put in some time, right? But when it comes
but
to
be a
like
reasonable
everything,
human being.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
just be a
I
reasonable
mean,
person.
it's kind of a disappointing answer, but it's kind of true, right? Like, you
Yeah.
mostly just pushing yourself really hard at the detriment of the people around you, at the detriment of your ability to work, at the detriment of your relationships is really unhealthy and will probably make you unhappy in the long run. So, try to find balance. Relax when you want to relax. Play Magic when you want to play Magic. Just play Magic intelligently and focus on getting better.
Yep, I agree. I think that's a good wrap up for the show. So thank you so much, Michael, for coming on. Remember, if you want to support the show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/constructed criticism. Just a reminder, we did split off LTO from constructed criticism. So if you like limited time only, and that's why you're a patron.
I think it's just under CCMTG.
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think it
I think
is.
all
I
right. So
might be wrong.
CCMTG. He's gonna check that for me real quick. One of the two. But
Yeah,
as
it's just under CCMTG.
all right, so CCMTG. So LTO is probably LTO as well on Patreon, if I had to guess. So if you are a patron of the show, because of LTO, we just want to let you know, like, we've separated that stuff to make sure that the money's going to places you actually want it. And I just want to
No,
remind people that,
LTO is under limited time only.
of course, it is. All right, so it's under
No, I
limited.
actually don't know what it's under. Maybe it's under LTO MTG.
Maybe I'm not sure. I just knew that, of course, I would say one
Yeah,
thing and it's the
it's
opposite.
under LTO MTG.
Okay, LTO MTG. So you can go there if you want to do that. And we wanted to give a big shout out once again to the Manivation. We like to poke fun at certain Merfolk players and myself. The time's coming, Michael. Eventually, I'll be at an event with him, and we'll get paired. But it's
I
got to the point
mean,
where people are tagging me in his posts. It's getting intense, Michael.
that's really sweet. I
Yeah,
love that. I'm glad you guys have a rivalry despite having like never actually played.
yeah, it's pretty great. I love
I
this.
like your Twitter call out was really good.
Thank you.
I think we should just have more Twitter call outs in general. I think it would dramatically improve the quality of life in this country.
I mean, Owen basically does it all the time to the Magic community. Whenever there's a team event, he's like, let's show him who runs these streets." Just like every time, it's great.
Yeah, when you tweet it for like the 11th time, it's like, okay. Yeah,
All
I
right,
get
well,
it.
maybe I have more fun with it than Michael does. So maybe it's because
All
Owen
right.
just crushes Michael all the time.
I don't
But
think I've ever played Owen, but
so
yeah.
you've never beaten Owen? That's why he runs those streets, Michael. You gotta get
Yeah,
in there.
exactly.
Show him
Got to
who's
get paired
boss.
against him first. It hasn't worked out that well so far.
Exactly. Have you seen Black Panther?
Not yet.
All right, you need to challenge his royal bloodline. You'll understand that later.
Okay.
Wakanda forever. All right, so let's move on to hashtag would that be good. Hashtag would that be good. It's our Twitter outreach program. If you tweet it, this would normally be the point where Spencer says Mason hop on the mic for some reason, and I would have to read it. So let's get up here. And I believe I was taught to use the latest last time. Is that right? Is that the way to do it? Is that how you do it?
Yeah.
All right, so a week ago, I think would be. Oh, here we go. I found it. All right, so the hashtag would that be
Oh,
good
this
is
is Spencer tweeting about
the podcast.
yeah about Lotus Cobra Primeval Titan.
Yeah. And so I think the reason about this was that you were dumping on Lotus Cobra
Yeah,
last
I
week.
kept making fun of Lotus Cobra, and then finally, someone managed to 5-0 a league with Lotus Cobra in their deck, and Spencer was really excited about it.
So can we be real now that Spencer's not here? Lotus Cobra is almost assuredly not better than Sakura Tribe Elder in this list.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, it not almost assuredly, it's just not.
Love it. Boom, Gauntlet Throne, Spencer. You got to be on your own show if you want to defend it. All right, Andrew Elliott tweets, spamming my wife with I love you messages and Valentine's Day's posts on Facebook. We promise not to buy each other presents outside of Black Panther tickets. And he added Olive Garden for some reason, but not Black Panther, which was weird to me, but whatever, for dinner. Little does she know, she's got a dozen roses waiting for her in chocolate. Hashtag would that be good?
Olive Garden's Twitter replied to this, which is
Wait, did they?
weird, like really weird.
That's so sweet. Well, they sponsor PV, so they might know.
Yeah, so the question is, do they now follow Andrew?
Oh, that's the real question. I bet they did. I don't know. But here's the
so
real would that
weird.
be good, Michael?
Man, running like the Olive Garden Twitter account would be so weird.
Have you seen the Wendy's one? Oh, Michael hasn't seen the Wendy's Twitter. I can tell
I mean,
from his face.
I've seen some of that stuff, but
Your job is basically to roast people without getting in trouble. Like, that's basically all she does.
yeah, like, do you think that that's a full-time job?
Oh, yeah.
That's her only job?
I think so.
How do you think she got hired? What was the interview like?
So we know who
It just seems weird.
So we know who it was a year ago because the person who did it left and they have a new person doing it now. I know this because it was on Reddit and someone shared that like this lady updated her resume and she was the Twitter manager for Wendy's from like 2014 to 2017.
Funny.
So she got in there. I imagine she was like, let's try and be sassy. And then they're like, I guess. And then it just worked. And so she was like, I'm sassy all the time now. So
That sounds great.
yeah. Let's see. At Scotty Peresco tweets in Vegas till Sunday for the World Sign Spinning Competition. Whoa! Kind of want to find a place to play F&M. Hashtag would that be good? Hashtag priorities. Hashtag wrong cards in Vegas. World Sign Spinning Competition. Is Scott a World Sign Spinner competitor?
I couldn't tell you. I don't really know what that would
my
look like.
gosh.
I'm also not going to look it up on YouTube.
My mind. So I'm imagining, and I'm sorry if this is wrong, Scott, like the people on the side of the road who spin their signs, and they're like, pizza over here.
Yeah, but like better.
But like infinite, is this like the Olympics? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna add
Can
Scott after
yeah,
this.
you can win a medal maybe.
That'd be so good. All right, we have Nathan Kaiser. I know this guy. What's up, Nathan? He tweeted, "I finished my playset of Liliana's. Hashtag would that be good?" With a picture of 2 Lilianas and the goat Michael Hinderocker and the dragon Spencer Howland tokens.
I feel like your opponent is not going to let you cast either of those tokens as a Liliana, but if you can get them to do it, more power to you.
I think what really happened is he ordered his token. He ordered from Oasis Games and got the tokens, Michael. So
Oh, I
he
liked
only
it.
needed to. You
No, no,
liked it
no.
better when you're
I
Liliana.
liked it better when he was gonna try to play the tokens as Liliana's.
Yeah.
That
So,
was funnier to me. But
so
you
I
know,
I used you in battle with my fascinating token, and someone was like, "Who is that?" And I was like, "Got him."
perfect.
You're getting
That's
your
what I
name
like
out
to hear.
there. Uh,
Don't get my name out there. My name is not worth having out there.
we already talked about how powerful Hinderrocker is. I have to vent, and this one's me. Soapbox time, Michael. It's 7 p.m. going into the last round of Swiss. Hashtag would that be good? Michael, this PPTQ started at 2 p.m.
Why? They just like never run a PPTQ before?
Correct. It was their first
Yeah.
PPTQ,
Okay. Well,
and
then you get a pass.
you would get a pass if not for what's about to happen, Michael.
Oh.
The lighting in there, and the only way I could describe it is like if Applebee's was trying to set the mood on Valentine's Day. It was literally the
Uh,
worst. I couldn't. They were. I had to adjust the lighting. I like couldn't see my cards at a time, and
that's great.
because Applebee's is the master of not being the best. Hashtag at me
Wait.
Applebee's.
Was Dathan playing tokens as Liliana's at that event?
No, no. Nathan was
Okay.
not that.
All
Nathan
right.
lives in a different part of the state. But
I was good. I mean, that seems like the prime opportunity.
yeah, you're like, I'll play this Liliana, tick up. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it. It's a Liliana. But no, but the lighting they had wasn't consistent across the room. And part of that is that where the table numbers just landed, tables 1 through 4 had better lighting than everyone else.
Oh man, that's some incentive.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm into that.
Yeah. So when I snuck into top 8 on like .01 breaker, like absurdity, and I was 8th to 1st, so I had table 1, and I beat him, and I just called seatsies. I was like, not moving. I need to be able to see my cards.
Perfect. That
Yeah.
just sounds like a good time.
All right, so we got some drama. Are you ready for this, Michael? Andrew Elliott at Spencer Howland, hashtag would that be good? And it is a response to Riley Knight, best commentator in the world, don't at me about it, eating his pizza crust first.
Oh,
What do you think
I'm
about
just
this?
I'm not really that into pizza drama. Do what you want.
Michael, I need to know, crust first or crust
I
second? Answer it.
I mean, probably second, just like because it's less messy that way. But
Yeah.
like,
I feel like it's hard to
I
hold
don't
the
really,
pizza.
I just don't really have that strong opinions in general about what people eat, how they eat their pizza, or what they put on it. Like, we're kind of back to the like tilting thing. I just not gonna
Michael
get
just
tilted
doesn't get
this
worked up
easily.
about anything.
It's just not that upsetting.
So I'm not. So I'm going to hang out with you a lot outside the show environment. But a little behind the scenes current news. Michael definitely amps his voice up in excitement for the show, but comparative to before the show. Because we're like talking about decks before the show, and it's like very monotone, very much like, yeah, I mean, I guess Vraska's a card in the deck. Yep. And it's just like he's on the show, and he's much more loud and excited. And I'm not sure if that's how you're like all the time, or you just hate me, or where we're at. But
No,
no, yeah.
well, okay. First of all, I am always really tired on Monday nights,
That's fair.
so this is always kind of the struggle. But I also try to talk louder and more excitedly because I mean, it probably makes for better content, if we're being totally honest.
Yeah, definitely does.
But it just depends.
I'm excited.
I can be an excitable person at times, but I am also naturally not. My baseline excitement level is relatively low. I'll just put it that way.
So I'll report back to the CC family after hanging out on a weekend with Michael. I'll know the truth after this weekend because you're gonna be staying in my hotel room, and we're gonna get you some good Memphis barbecue. Do you like
All right.
barbecue?
Well, I do like barbecue. Yes.
All right, so we're gonna go get. Apparently, Trey knows all the food places in Tennessee, and apparently there's like good price, really good barbecue down there. So we're going on Saturday. So
Sweet. That sounds.
I will
fantastic.
gauge your excitement level then. Andrew Elliott for our last tweets. I don't know why, but I'm literally lolling at Mason E. Clark getting a Bojangles gift card as part of his prize pool. I guess I'm just easily amused. So
I mean, but that's just like actually funny. That's so bizarre.
yeah, I got it right here in this box. I had my 24 packs, and by the way, we didn't get done till like 10:30, so I didn't want to deal with like waiting cards out. So I was like, I'll take the packs. You got me this time. But I look in it as we're driving home, and I'm like, I have a Bojangles gift card, and I thought maybe someone accidentally put their Bojangles gift card. Incorrect. Everyone in Top 8 got a Bojangles gift card.
That's fantastic. I'm in for that, man.
My mind's just blown. Like, hey, you didn't get through the RPDQ, but Bojangles is a proud sponsor of this BBDQ.
I mean,
God dang. If you don't know
that
what
just
Bojangles
sounds
is, it's
great.
like a terrible chicken place, by the way. So
But like, I appreciate the effort. It's like, sorry about the lighting, sorry about the start time. Here's a Bojangles gift card. I'm into that.
$5. You can get any iced tea you want. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, so much whining.
I had a. It was the worst. They also gave me a shirt, Michael, for second place. That was the other thing. They're like, "Hey,
Oh,
you didn't win. Here's a memory of not winning. Here you go. Take the shirt.
that's great.
Wear it
Well,
around." So,
hopefully they'll learn from it
yeah.
and do better next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I had a blast. It was always fun, Michael, and we'll see you, amigos, next week.
Yeah, sounds good. See you guys.